Great, well, nice to see you all. Good to be with you. And as Peter was saying, what I'm going to be sharing with you in the next 15 minutes or so is how to virtually guarantee a successful online program through piloting. So that's a fair claim, but you'll see what I mean when we get into it, because all of us, or most of us, I think here, are interested in how we can create an online course or a program or productize our knowledge in some way. And this approach that I've arrived at, this idea of piloting what we do, I think can be effective for all of you. So I'd like to share it with you. So here's what we've got in store. We're going to look at 5 online program and course creation roadblocks. So I suspect these things are affecting you, some or all of them. Number 2, a couple of case studies for you. Why I think piloting is the answer and how it can help you get through a lot of these roadblocks. What is piloting anyway? So I'll give you my definition of the term, what I think it means in this context. Why pilot? 8 really good reasons that you should consider doing this. And then we're just going to wrap up. So 6 practical steps you can take to getting your pilot off the ground. So the first roadblock, procrastination. We all suffer from this, don't we? We all know that getting a program or a course together is something that we want to do, but we never get round to it. Is that fair? And we find other things that we think are more important, and we fritter away time, and we never actually get it done. No, not Peter. So Peter's the exception, but for most of us, we all suffer from this. And what number 2, I think, is related is this: we say to ourselves, I can't make time to do this. This is going to take me ages and ages to create this huge amount of content. And I'm kind of overwhelmed by the whole thing. So maybe I'll put it on the back burner, or I'll do it next week. Number 3, it's quite likely that we lack a bit of confidence around selling online. So funnels, learning management systems, webinars, Facebook ads, marketing automation. Headache already. You know, for most of us, trying to weigh up what we need to do to sell this thing online is a headache, and it can stop us from moving forward. Number 4, we're not sure if the market will buy what we plan to sell them. We're not sure. And number 5, because we're not sure, we feel really worried and concerned about risking the time and energy to actually do this thing, because what we don't want to do is put a load of time into something only for it to bomb. Correct? Yeah. So, yeah, I think the other possibility as well, you know, maybe if you've dabbled in this, maybe you've created an online product, you have maybe created something, you might have sold 1 or 2 and you feel a bit underwhelmed, you're wondering where next. Equally, you may have sold products at low ticket, so, you know, 20, 50, 100 quid, but you're wondering, could I charge a much higher price point, and how would I go about doing that for the material that I can share with people? And if any of that describes you, you know, if you've had these false dawns, you've had these frustrations with creating your products, I feel your pain, I do. So let me just tell you a little bit about the first time I tried to do this, and this is going back about 5 or 6 years now when I first set up my business. And I decided that it would be a good idea if I could sell information products. And so here's what I did. You know, I knew that I needed to build a list. So I did that. So I built a list, over 1,000 people who should be in the market for this thing that I wanted to sell. And then I nurtured them. I gave these guys gold, okay? Every week I was sending them good material, emails with useful content, all this kind of thing. And, people are replying, going, oh, this is great, do you do seminars, this, thanks very much, all this kind of thing. So I nurtured it. I nurtured that list, just as people say that you should do. And then I created this £47 information product. So I was looking back at this, it's like a 64-page manual. And it was on a good topic. So this was around lead generation. So using Google AdWords for lead generation. So, topic, lead generation. I mean, how many of you guys are interested in generating more leads? Most of you, okay? So not a duff topic. I sat down, it took me, I can't remember now, it certainly took me weeks to research and create this thing. It may have even taken, over a month, might have been a couple of months. So I just sat down, I created this thing, I put a lot of pride and effort into it. Have a guess, guys. So when I finally hit the button, I sat there one morning, I emailed my list. I'm sat there thinking, this is going to be great. I wonder how many am I going to sell? 50, 100? How many? No. Two. It was two. It was two. So that is a good guess. So two. So grand total of £94 for all that time and energy that I put in. So how do you think I was feeling at that point? Yeah, not so good. Not so good. Pretty low. And, this is one of the dangers. This is one of the dangers. And this, what we're going to talk about piloting, I could have avoided this. So let's just fast forward this 5 years. I've now done some other things in my own business. I've now been working with various clients. I've produced other courses, been contracted to produce courses for other people. So fast forward 5 years, and here's a client of mine. This is Sarah Rugg. And Sarah, 11 years ago, set up her own business. So she was a lady who was on maternity leave. She just had a baby, and she couldn't face going back to work. And so she decided to herself, what I'm going to do is set up a virtual assistant business. So, we're pretty familiar with this concept now, but if you go back 11 years, a fairly new concept. And she built that business up to the point where she had 15 VAs working for her. So a virtual assistant business, based here in the UK in Cheshire. Last autumn, Sarah and her business partner came to me and they said that we'd like to add a program to our business. So what we'd like to do is show people who are interested in setting up their own virtual assistant business what Sarah's process was, because she'd made a success of this business. So people who were in her shoes 11 years back who might like to do the same, and could we create a product or a course or a program around this? And so here's what we did. So we had a small budget. We put £2,000 into advertising. So about 40% of that was Facebook ads, 40% was Google AdWords. We did one or two other websites. And we built a list of about 600 people. So we had a lead magnet. We built a list of 600 people. And then what we actually did with Sarah's program, over about a 2-month period, we sold 16 spots. The first price point we had was $1,500, and it went up a bit. We experimented a little bit, but they were all between $1,500 and $2,000. So by the end of that period, the sales were $26,150. So what did we do differently? What was the difference between grossing £94 on my ebook and then 5 years down the line we're doing in excess of 26,000? What was the difference?
Someone had done it?
Yeah, sure. The reality, David, there were lots of differences, as you would expect, but one of the really key ones that I want to share with you today is just this idea of piloting. Because I think piloting is the answer. Piloting is the answer to these things that we talked about earlier. If you're procrastinating, the way I'm going to show you to do it in this session is the answer. It's going to kill procrastination. If you can't make time to do it, this approach is going to force you to make time to do it. If you don't know how to sell online, the good news is, I think you can do this without needing all these sophisticated techniques and tools. And if you're not sure if the market will buy what you have, and you can't afford to risk the time and energy if they don't, you're going to love this. You are going to love it, because we're not going to create something unless we're sure the market is going to buy. And that's really what is at the heart of this piloting process. So you may be wondering, what is it? How do we do it? So let's get into that now. So how do I define this idea of piloting? So what we're talking about here is selling a first version of your product, your course or your program. And in software, they talk about this idea of a minimum viable product. So just coming up with, let's forget all the bells and whistles. Let's forget the 12-month program that you had in mind where you shared absolutely everything that you've ever picked up in the last 20 years. No, let's shrink it down. Let's figure out what is a first version that's going to give people a nice outcome that they really care about, and how do we get that out there? And what we recognize with the piloting process is that this is an iterative process. The word iterative means, so but we do a version, we do another version, we just keep improving over and over and over again. So it's about selling this first version, this minimum viable product. And ideally, we want to develop this through a dialogue with our market. So you think back to my first example where I was selling this ebook. How much dialogue was there with the market? None, zero. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. I didn't email them and say, do you think this is a good idea? Would you buy this? How much would you pay for it? What would be important if I covered it? There was none of that. And as a result, when I put this out into the world, what happened? No one was invested in it. No one cared. No one even knew it was coming. So what we're doing with the pilot is completely the opposite, is that we're developing this thing through a dialogue with the market. As I touched on a minute ago, if you have an idea in your mind for a program that is going to be this kind of super duper, all-conquering 12-month monster, I would say just forget about that for now. You could get there in the end, but I would be a lot more, a lot less ambitious. And I would keep it nice and simple. And I would just think to myself, can I provide people with an outcome that they really care about in 3 to 6 weeks? Or can I help them make tangible progress on something that they really care about in 3 to 6 weeks? So I would ask that question, can we do it in a short time frame? Number of people to work with on a pilot. Now, as I showed you with the case study with Sarah, we actually had 16 people on that pilot. Great in many ways. I think with hindsight, it's also quite a large number. I'm not sure I would do quite that many this time. So I think 4 is a pretty good number. And that's all it takes. And part of what we do with the pilot, and this is part of the deal that people get if they come on board with our pilot, is, to borrow Jason's phrase, it's a two-way street. It's a two-way street. So we're going to give them a good deal, and we're going to give them some extra support and help. And in return, we would like their feedback, please. And we do that in a formalized way. So at the beginning of the pilot, I like to send people a survey and ask them questions about, why did you buy? Was there anything that, put you off buying? All this kind of stuff. This is really valuable intelligence for you. And then at the end of the pilot, we would have another questionnaire where we say, how did it work? Were there any sticking points? Which bits were the most valuable? Were there any bits you drop? So just making that feedback element an integral part of the whole offering. I also think with the pilot, not always, but often the best way to go with this is simply for you to deliver it live online. So, for example, let's say we were going to show your clients how to get an outcome in 4 weeks. How might you deliver that? Well, I would argue what you could possibly do is you could just get on Zoom with them. Most of us are familiar with Zoom at this point. And maybe you deliver an hour of content. You have half an hour for a Q&A. You give them some homework. And then you come back at the same time next week. And you do that for 4 weeks. So you're actually delivering the thing live. So you're not worrying about creating videos, which they then go and view in their own time. You're actually delivering it live with them. And of course, if you do that, you can record the sessions. And you might come back and re-record, later on and actually turn it into a video. But I suggest with the pilot, you just keep it very simple. And because people are going to be there with you live, it forces you to deliver, doesn't it? So that's the basic concept that I have in mind when I talk about piloting. So why do it? Here are 8 very good reasons. Number 1 is we can avoid a lot of wasted time and effort, can't we? So, I explained to you how I sat there. I wrote this bloody manual, this 64-page thing. I spent weeks doing it, and then I had this crushing disappointment. And that's not great. That's time I'll never get back. And if we pilot in the way I'm going to explain, you can avoid that wasted time and effort, because one of the key things is that we don't create anything until people buy. So when I say we don't create anything, clearly we create an outline. We know where we're going to take people if they go ahead. But we're not sat there creating a bunch of content unless people actually come on board with it. And number 2, and I think this is a big one as well, is it's actually going to take a lot of the pressure off you. Because when you're piloting this thing, it gives you permission to iterate. So you're not sat there thinking, how can I make this thing the most incredible, all-conquering program that is the most perfect thing I could possibly create? No, you're saying to people, look guys, I'm selling this thing. I think it's 90% right. I'd like your help with the other 10%. It's a rough cut. And that gives you permission to just stop procrastinating and create something. You're not searching for perfection, which you're never going to get. So that's a big one. Number 3, built into this is a natural deadline and natural scarcity. So why does having this pilot process, why does it give us a natural deadline? Why does it give us scarcity? You've only got a few people, as Steve says. So if you're saying, if you contact 20 of your clients and you say, I'm trying this thing, I have 4 places, I'm contacting 20 people this week, that's scarcity. How about the deadline? Yeah, because the first session is next Wednesday. Are you in or not? So, these are powerful things in any kind of marketing, but they are baked into the pilot approach. So it's very powerful stuff. Number 4, and again, we've touched on this kind of idea this morning. It creates a forcing function. What's a forcing function? Do you know, or can you guess?
It makes you do it.
It makes you do it, absolutely. Because if you've sold your pilot to people and you are doing the first session next Wednesday, well, come hell or high water, you're good professionals, guys. I mean, you're going to deliver, aren't you? Even if it means you stay up late one night and you're doing the slides at 1 o'clock in the morning, you're going to come up with something you're going to deliver, aren't you? Now, the danger, if you think to yourself, I'm going to create this great program, I'm going to do the videos, and then, when it's ready, well, I'll release it to the world, you may never get there. you know? So this is powerful. You know, if you do it this way, you create that forcing function, and it helps you do something that's uncomfortable so that you create something and you actually get it done. Number 5, piloting makes for a great selling story. What do you think I mean by that? Testimonials is one, yeah. So you're working very closely with people, and they're going to like you because you've been helping them, you've been giving them some support. Jason, got one?
Yeah, well, after you've done the first one, then that's your sales pitch for the next one. You can tell them about how you came up with this, why it's changed, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's powerful for you to be able to go out there into the market and say, you know, look, guys, this isn't something that I just dreamed up in my bedroom. I worked with clients. We developed this with clients. Yeah, that's powerful. You know, I've made sure that this thing is road tested and that it meets the needs of people just like you. So that, you know, and that doesn't help you just in the pilot, that helps you forever. You know, so the selling story, you know, the other one that we've not touched on, where else I think it gives you a really, really good selling story is when you're selling it the first time. Because actually, I think, you know, we're all experts at something. And what I find is that people can be worried about going out to prospects and saying, you know, I've got this thing, but it's not quite ready, because we kind of feel, well, you know, I'm the expert, it should be perfect. And actually, I don't think your clients think in the same way. I always find people really respond to this message. They really like the idea that they're getting first dibs on this thing, they're going to get some extra attention from you. People really respond to that. And it also gives you a very clear explanation. You know, why are you making this offer? You know, it's reason why stuff. You have that reason why. You know, this is why I'm making this offer. This is why it's a good offer, because we're piloting it. So I think all the way along the line, it's very powerful as a selling story. Number 6, people support what they help create. So if you have people on board with you and they're giving you feedback, and you know, we talked about that being part of the process, and you've treated them well, you're gonna have some advocates in the marketplace. And that's because they've helped you create this thing. So that, you know, much nicer to be out there in the market with people saying nice things about you than to be out there in the market, you know, without that. Number 7, because of the way we've structured this, we're definitely going to get that valuable feedback from people, aren't we? You know, that's part of the deal with the piloting process. You know, that they're on the hook for that, if you like. That's part of the deal that they got when they signed up. And that's going to help us improve the product. It could give us testimonial material. And the last reason, can be sold in a low-tech way. What do you think I mean by that?
Networking.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do a massive marketing program to get 4 people.
Yeah, because you're only looking for a small number of people, and it's like Peter was saying, just pick up the phone. You can do this. You know, you're looking for 4 people. All of you have client lists, you have prospect lists, you have, you know, maybe people who came to work with you and they couldn't afford you or whatever. Is this an opportunity to go back to them and say, hey, there's a more affordable way we could work together. I'm piloting this thing. Is this something that you might be interested in? So, you know, just forget funnels. You know, not that these things aren't great, you know, funnels, webinars, but actually to sell 4 places, probably to your existing client base, you probably don't need that. You know, you can just do this in a low-tech way. Just have conversations with people, explain what it is you're doing. So where do we go from here? If you're interested in this concept, so where would you go now? How could you kick this off? Because I think there's no reason, actually anyone in this room couldn't leave this couple of days that we have together and get this going very quickly. So the first step is to just get your thinking cap on. Just decide, okay, so if we're going to provide an outcome or we're going to help people make tangible progress towards something, that they really care about in the 3 to 6 week time frame, what would that be? What would that be? So what kind of outcome can we help them get? Number 2, get feedback from the market on your idea. Now, one of the ways that you can do this in a very simple way is you think up the headline. So whatever would, let's imagine you were doing a sales page for your program, and you think up the headline, and you can email that out to some people in your network, and you just say something along the lines of this. You say, would you mind helping me out? I'm doing a bit of market research here. If I was to put this in front of you, can you just tell me on a score out of 1 to 10 how enthusiastic you would be about wanting to learn more? And then you just say, okay, so it's how to, whatever it is. So whatever the outcome is. And so you can just put that out into the market as a feeler and just get some feedback from people. And if they're saying, well, 8, 9, 10 out of 10, not only do you know you've got the germ of an idea that could be really, that could perform really well for you, but you may actually have some people who are now curious. They're more interested in what it is you're doing, and it could be that you develop the conversation and that they come on board with the pilot. So it's a nice, non-threatening way of getting people interested in what you're offering. So number 3, plan what you deliver. Like I said before, don't go and lock yourself away in your room and create a bunch of stuff. I don't recommend that you do that, but clearly you need to have a plan. So if you go ahead with this, in bullet points, these are the things we'd cover. This is the outcome we'd like to get to in week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. This is the roadmap, if you like. So create that roadmap and then decide, well, what's a realistic start date? And then you can contact your potential pilotees. And as we've been talking about this morning, you can do this in a very low-tech way. You can just have conversations with them. You can just use the phone and explain what you have. And then very simply, if they buy this thing, deliver it. If not, don't. So quite simple, and I hope that what you see with this process is that this can be a way for you to make progress and actually get going with this kind of thing in your business, but without making an enormous upfront commitment of time and energy. You can kind of try this out. And if people bite, then you can go ahead and do it. And if you go ahead and do it, then you have something that the market is actually responding to. So I hope you found that helpful, guys. I don't know if we've any time for questions. We may or may not, but no worries. Well, I'm around, so happy to share experiences on this, and I hope you found it helpful.